What's up, gang? I am Keshav. I am sweating so hard. Also, mic on a comb. What's up, gang? I am Keshav, and I've spent the past 5 years on productivity content. And I wasted a lot of time. I literally started watching Ali Abdaal when I was in high school. Ali Abdaal, by the way, is like this, I would say, probably one of the faces of productivity YouTube. And literally seen him get married, move to a different country, have a child. Same thing happened to Matt Diavella, by the way. Also started growing because of minimalism, peaked, and then moved to a different country, had a child. So I don't know, maybe that's just the arc that productivity content creators go on. But the idea here is I've spent a lot of time, and I want this video to not be one full of recommendations, which I know you're here for, and there will be recommendations laced throughout this video. But I want this video to be something that helps people navigate the productivity content space, because there is so much fluff out there, and I would want for you guys to see through all of it and be able to get more productivity juice out of the content you're consuming. Kind of like, you know how in Clash of Clans there was
like a gold mine and like an elixir collector, and you had the ability to like use gems to speed up your gold mine and elixir collector. So for the same amount of time, you would actually get like more elixir and more gold. And so this video is kind of trying to be your mine booster.
nice. And the way I want to do that is walking you through 3 principles. The first core principle is there is no one-stop solution. I know, you're like, bro, this is another video about how the answer is it depends. Why don't you just tell me what the books are and what the podcast and YouTube are? I know, but the answer to most things in life is it depends. And that's just because after spending 5 years watching content from so many diverse creators, one thing I've realized is my work personality, my work style, the kind of work I do, and the agency I have on the work I do is really different to a lot of these productivity space people. And think about it, like they are trying to create content for as many people as possible. There are books, there are videos, podcasts, like so much stuff trying to appeal to as many people as possible. And so for a lot of that, the advice becomes more general than it has to be. And I mean, fair play to them, that's just like them trying to help as many people as they can. But often the audience or the readers of this content start trying to apply generic principles without being slightly skeptical about them to their lives. And that's what I want to talk about, is like, that's why I feel like a lot of self-improvement content gets such a bad rap, because people think that, oh, this isn't really like helpful and stuff. Well, it's only helpful if it's actionable, and it's only actionable if it applies to your work style and your life. And so you're like, okay, Shav, okay, I get that there's no one-stop solution. What do I do now? Step-by-step guide on how to see through the bullshit. Step number 1 is engage with a diverse range of productivity content. Now, when you start your journey on productivity content, do not just go down one particular person and just sort of explore everything that they have to say about it. So don't just go heavy into Ali Abdaal, heavy into Matt Diavella, heavy into Cal Newport, heavy into Mark Manson. Like, none of this is actually going to help you decipher if their content is good for you or not. What you need to do is engage with as many diverse voices as you can. So go through a book here, a book there, different author, different podcast person, different YouTuber. Do all of that, and then be able to decipher which of their principles applies best to your life, and then go deeper into that particular person. Pause. And then go deeper into that particular person's work.
Run like a breadth first search. Find something and then go depth first. It's like a T-shape. You get what I'm trying to say.
Here, let me walk you through an example. My work cycle is like, I am brain rotting, and then I feel bad about brain rotting and guilty about brain rotting. And so I start working really hard to escape from that guilt. And then I burn out working really hard. And so I start feeling guilty about the burnout. And then in order to escape that guilt, I start brain rotting again. And so in that like workflow, I think I've realized that okay, maybe like the consistent grind set mindset isn't for me. And what it actually breeds inside me is like a lot of insecurity and anxiety about the work I do. I mean, this video in itself is an act against perfectionism and just trying to be as raw a video as possible. In that scenario, when someone comes up to me and is like, oh, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is a book that you should like really go into, and just David Goggins' work. I'm sure a lot of people have had their lives changed by David Goggins' work, but it's just not stuff that will work for me, knowing that I am not of the stay hard like mentality, and that's okay. Instead, the books that I would choose would be ones that emphasize stability and sustainability. Something like 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman, or Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, or a lot of Ali Abdaal's work. And that is, I think, what works best for me. But again, if David Goggins works for you, then that person works for you. What's important is you have explored enough to figure out that they work for you in your particular context. So again, just to wrap it up, that's how you see through the fluff. Step 1, explore a varied but limited amount of resources on productivity. Step 2, reflect on your own work style and see which productivity space resonated with you. And then step 3, go deep into the work of that particular person. All right, so let's move on to principle number 2, which is no singular resource is perfect. And I know you're thinking, Keshav, didn't you like just say that? Not exactly. Once you've gone deep into someone's work, you will realize that you disagree with a lot of things that they are saying, or some of the things maybe that they're saying. And you will feel the pressure to either agree with that person and forcefully try and apply their principles to your life, or completely disregard all of the work that they have done in the past. I implore you not to do that. In the book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which is one of my favorite books on self-improvement, there are a lot of great principles that Naval talks about like how happiness is peace in motion, about how desire is the contract you have with yourself to be unhappy for something that you want in life. I think a lot of those things resonate with me. However, Naval is also notoriously known to be really protective of his time. And so to the point that on the Chris Williamson podcast, he once said, oh, my wife knows not to book me for even like family events. I will decide literally on the day dot, on the hour dot, whether or not I want to go do something, and I'll go and do that. Now, that's not something that I necessarily agree with, because I don't think that's how interpersonal relationships prosper, but that is a principle that he has in mind. And maybe that principle is what inspires a lot of his work and inspires a lot of the agency he has and a lot of the freedom he enjoys. But hey, that's a line that I draw, and that's okay, because a lot of his other work really, really resonates with me to the point that my entire summers have been devoted to just exploring the things that he has said. Another book that this applies to is the book The Courage to Be Disliked, which is a book I literally just finished on Audible. Speaking of Audible, I'm really glad to announce that they are sponsoring this video. No, they're not. Audible or anyone, please sponsor. Would love that. Now, coming back to The Courage to Be Disliked, it is a notoriously disagreeable book. Like, the book talks about how all problems are interpersonal problems. It talks about how trauma doesn't exist and stuff like that. Like, that is insanely disagreeable. However, it also talks about how someone can choose to be happy right now. And it also talks about how reality is not exactly reality, but just our perception of it. And that's stuff that resonates with me. And so what this ends up being is an exercise in me being skeptical about certain parts of a singular resource and then choosing to apply the things I do agree with to my life to the best ability possible. What this allows you to do is take a modular approach to a singular resource or a singular thought leader as well, and not be too dependent on that person and worship them or glorify them to the point that when they do disagree with you, your view on everything changes. But then also at the same time be able to be flexible for change in the future, because hey, your life and your personality and your work will change over time, and so will your needs for self-improvement and also just the stuff that will work for you, right? And so my final take on no singular resource being perfect is consume widely, take what resonates, discard what doesn't, and be okay with disagreeing with stuff without disregarding all the work that the author has done, while at the same time not forcing yourself to agree with the things that they have said. All right, moving on to the third principle. And this is something that, again, kind of comes from the first principle, is no amount of productivity or self-improvement content is ever going to be enough. What you need to understand is that there is no threshold. There is no amount of more videos, podcasts, books that you can watch to feel like you are going to be productive now. All that you can do is execute on the stuff that you have learned and then iterate and move forward. And that's coming from someone who spent the past 5 years basically just consuming and still having this void of not feeling like I'm perfectly productive every single day. Now, is that just undercooked perfectionism? Maybe. But what it still applies to is that after having spent so much time on productivity content, I still don't feel satisfied, and I still don't feel satisfied by the work I do. And here I'm going to bring back the courage to be disliked, right? Like, you can choose to be happy right now, because the now is the only thing that exists. The present is the only thing that exists. The past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist, and neither do you control either of those things. You can only live in this specific dot you have right now, and you can choose to shine a light on it, and you can choose to be happy about it without having to worry about the future or the past, stuff that you do not control and stuff also that does not exist right now. More consumption will only lead to more feelings of incompetence. A book that I don't really like, but still a book that is really, really popular in the productivity space, is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And in the book, Mark Manson has this great line where he says, the pursuit of a positive experience is in itself a negative experience. And self-improvement can get like that. When you consume so much in the search of feeling productive, you can start feeling incompetent really quickly. So remember that it is a journey and not a destination that you can just get to. There is no sufficient amount of resources to engage with. And so, yeah, those are the 3 core principles of productivity, in my opinion, or productivity content rather. I know you're thinking, you're like, so what are some like universal things that are like generally true? Because if you think everything's so specific to someone, there has to be some like universal truths in the world of productivity that still apply, right? And I think there are some, but I'm skeptical about saying that they're actually universal truths because I just know them to be true for me. So I'm just gonna list them out and hope that you guys find some value out of it. Number 1, consistency beats intensity. Going to the gym for 7 days a week for 2 weeks is not going to be better than going to the gym 3 days a week for 5 weeks. The reason why I say that is because almost everything that you do in life is only going to lead to asymmetric returns when you compound the effort that goes into it. And you can only see the results of compounding over a period of time. So what becomes important is sustainability and being able to build something that you can stick to for the long term. It also helps that with consistency and duration, when you do the same thing over and over again, you are able to create an identity, which is sort of the key goal here. The second universal tip comes from this book, The Creative Act, one of my favorite books, gifted to me by one of my favorite people. It talks about the fact that ideas often come through you and not to you. There are ideas that exist in the ether, that exist because of the time and space that they belong to, but they're only finding relevance in society right now because of the execution that you have committed. All of that is to say, your ability to be happy with your work depends on your ability to reduce the gap between ideation and execution. Especially for creative people, if there is a creative urge that you have, go for it. That's literally what I'm doing right now with a comb in my hand. Third, gratitude is a productivity amplifier. Whenever the going gets tough, whenever you feel like there are feelings of incompetence and that you're not doing enough work, coming back to gratitude will always help ground yourself in your current reality without your perception skewing it too much. Being able to see that you do have a lot and that there is an abundance that you come from is really good for people who suffer from a lot of productivity and self-improvement related anxiety, because it takes away that feeling of scarcity and brings forth a feeling of abundance. And fourth, and my final thing, is finding a purpose. One of my favorite philosophers is Albert Camus, and in his book, The Myth of Sisyphus, he talks about how one must imagine Sisyphus happy. How in his eternal punishment given to him by Zeus, the biggest act of rebellion in rolling a boulder up a hill and then watching it go down every day is just being happy doing it. And where does that happiness comes from? It stems from a sense of purpose. In The Courage to be Disliked, they talk about how happiness is actually the feeling of contributing to society. And maybe that can be your purpose. Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning talks about he who has a why to live can bear with any how. That may not be his quote. I think he took it from someone else, but he talks about that. And so essentially, when you live with a purpose and when you keep yourself grounded in that purpose, remembering why you started is always going to help you get through the tougher periods of time, along with gratitude when it comes to your self-improvement journey. So I guess in short, when things get tough and feelings of incompetence compound, lower the intensity of the work you're doing, focus on consistency and building sustainability, being grateful for all that you have already, and reminding yourself of the purpose that you serve and why you started in the first place. All right, so that's enough jargon. I have given you all that you need for your productivity needs. Remember that productivity is a long-term process and not a destination, but a journey that you need to be on. You got to be kind to yourself. Happiness and purpose is what creates productivity. And what was the last note I had? Embrace the journey, take what works, leave what doesn't. And I say that because this video in itself was basically me rambling to my voice notes, getting a transcription, giving the transcription to ChatGPT, which is why it took me so long to record this video, and then bringing it forth to you, trying to be less perfectionist about it and just sort of get a video out. So if you guys enjoyed it, let me know. I'm trying to do more video essay type stuff that is less editing, more fun. So yeah, I guess I'll see you later. I need something like fun to end the video with. You know what would be really funny? If I just randomly